Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Tuesday afternoon. So, is the retrieve the most important thing in bass fishing? Yes, because most of the time, whoever can implement the most intriguing to the fish retrieve, you're going to catch the most bass. Now, there's also days where if you don't pick up on the little subtle tells that the bass give you, you're not going to catch anything. So, if you just think you can go out and do your normal yo-yo retrieve every time you go fishing and catch bass, there's going to be days where they'll only bite a straight retrieve. Now, that is rare. That's not going to be something you see all the time, but when you get in high pressured fisheries, or maybe you get in really cold water situations, little tiny clues that the fish give you are what you need to pick up on to become the best possible angler that you can become. Now, I will say this, there are some baits that are either everyone's favorite bait or you don't throw them at all because you're not retrieving them correctly. And I'm going to go through a couple of those baits. A jerkbait, a hybrid hunter / swank L-shaped bill crankbait. You can boat flip 4-pounders when they're hooked like this, so he's hooked really good, man. He crushed it. It's a nice one. We'll take that all day. And a jig, 3 that I really feel like if you're missing this technique or you're missing the way to retrieve it, you're not going to really get what you need to out of the bait. So let's start with a jerkbait. Now, a jerkbait is one that once you get it down, you've got it down and you can just roll with that all year long. You know, there's times of year in super cold water where you want to slow your cadence down, but for the most part, getting them to react is the whole key to jerkbait fishing. But what you don't want to do when you're jerkbait fishing is to jerk the bait or twitch it on a tight line. That's going to auto correct that bait. So what you want this bait to do, every time you twitch it on a semi-slack line, it's just going to make it kick. Now, it's pretty obvious, right? Jerk bait, you jerk it. But if you're jerking it on a tight line, what it will do is when it gets twitched, the bait will go like this. And if you tighten that line up, it'll auto correct that bait. So fish is looking at it. This is subtle. This is natural. And when you start to auto correct it before you jerk it, there goes the subtleness of the bait and there goes its natural appeal to the fish. It no longer looks like something alive. It looks like something that is being auto corrected. So if you ever look at your jerkbait by the side of the boat and you have jerked the slack out of the line and you go to jerk it again, you wind it up, it's just going to cause the bait to go like this. Very unnatural, and you're going to lose a lot of fish that are following your bait, and they'll never commit to it if they see that. So what you want is jerk, then twist. Typically, when I'm throwing a jerkbait, I will actually take my hand off the reel. So I'll twitch, then wind, twitch, then wind. So instead of keeping it on there and jerking, that's going to sometimes cause your brain to want to turn that handle like you are with every other technique. So what you want to do is, I've learned this from Ron Sheffield, great jerkbait fisherman of old. Take your hand off it. All right. So the jerkbait is one that you really want cloudy conditions. So if you don't have the right conditions for it, it's not going to work. Maybe that is your problem that you've run into throwing a jerkbait. But I still think the retrieve must be done right. You must figure out the conditions and the time of year and be on the correct lake with the right amount of water clarity. All that changes vastly as you go to different lakes and rivers. But if you're not retrieving it correctly, you're going to probably be missing out on the bite if it is happening. Now, the next one is the swank or the hybrid hunter. Now, everyone that I've talked to about this bait, they either have never caught anything on it at all or they love it. So why is that? I think the biggest thing about this bait is the retrieve. Now, again, like the jerkbait, the conditions, that can be tricky. Maybe the lake you fish is just not suitable for this technique. Now, I've only been catching them on this bait for a couple years now, and I only been fishing the Tennessee River with it for the most part. So this is lakes and rivers that have a good amount of visibility in the water. So if you have a lake that has 6 to 10 inches of visibility, maybe it is not your technique. Now, I have taken this down into tannic water in Florida and caught them, but again, those lakes and rivers that I was fishing this on have good visibility, over a foot. So this may be a clear water technique. I haven't thrown it on enough dirty, low visibility water clarities yet, but this technique, I think, comes down to the retrieve. So like the jerkbait, if you don't have the right rod and reel set up for your retrieve, you're going to be lost. Now, there are rods that you can get away with throwing. I've caught fish on this bait rather on several different rods. Now, if you don't have what I think is considered the right rod, like a parabolic bending, heavy action 7'6" rod, you'll still get bites. You'll just lose a lot of those fish. So the first key to this bait, because it runs 5 feet, once you start really turning that handle and moving that rod, you don't want to just bog it down into the bottom or the cover. So typically when I throw this bait out, it's going to be a retrieve upwards till I figure out basically where I need this bait to be. Maybe I'm making a little bit of contact with the bottom. Then I start sweeping the rod. This is a lot like the jerkbait in the sense that if you are not getting that bait to look natural and you're auto-correcting it every time, it's going to lose the appeal to the fish. So I think a big sweep, and again, you want to keep that line semi-slack. This is not a straight reel retrieve. Imagine fishing a jerkbait with a straight retrieve, or imagine fishing a Carolina rig where you weren't sweeping the rod, you were just doing a straight retrieve. You want to implement that action on a semi-slack line with the swank or the hybrid hunter. Keep that out there. And then look, you're going to get a lot of those bites on the ends of your pole because that bait is looking probably the most natural at the end of the pole. If you don't have a broomstick-like rod, you're never going to be able to hook those fish. They hit it really hard, so a lot of times they're going to connect. And if you have enough resistance there with that broomstick rod, you're going to bury those hooks even when you're out of position. So this is one where I think you are going to be out of position a lot if you want to implement it correctly, especially in these hotter months with the warmer water temperature, more active fish chasing bait. Earlier in the year, maybe you don't need as many poles with super frigid water. I've caught them both in hot water and cold water on this bait. But again, I think if you just think you can straight retrieve it and you're pulling it on a tighter line, not the semi-slack line, you're going to lose a lot of appeal that really makes this bait work. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. So the last one I will talk about is a jig, and I'm going to stay on the same trend as working the bait on what is a semi-slack line. So obviously we've just talked about two subsurface baits that you're going to fish slow. You can fish the hybrid hunter fast. You're going to fish that jerkbait slow a lot of the time, especially in the colder months. And the jig is going to be kind of a both in between, but only fished on the bottom slash stroked up off the bottom. So there's a couple of different ways to fish a jig. Obviously, you can pitch it out, shake it a few times, reel it back in, throw it back out. Now that's going to catch a lot of fish. Like most bottom baits, that's how you're going to catch a lot of fish. But I will say this, if you want to get some bites, or maybe the fish are in a weird mood that you wouldn't normally get just doing the normal drag it, hop it a little bit, fish it super slow technique, you can stroke it. And this isn't just for shallow jig fishing. This is more so for deep fishing, schools of fish on offshore structure, but this is going to work shallow as well. So you pitch your jig into the target or you cast it out onto the ledge, and instead of on a tight line, you can take this jig and on, again, a semi-slack line, so your line is going to be sitting on the surface. You can feel your jig on the bottom of the lake. Now let your line kind of come down to the surface of the water and then just pop it up. So my jig is on the bottom. Now my line is just sitting on the surface of the water. Pop it up. Pop it up. You'll hear that whipping sound of the line on the surface of the water. And that is going to, again, make your bait not ever autocorrect. So back to the jerk bait, when it's twitching and it's going and the fish are fooled, they're not ever seeing your bait at the end of a twitch sit there and then just turn back autocorrect before the next twitch. Same thing with the jig. They're not ever seeing that unnatural appeal of it just kind of moving back to the boat. You're popping it and it's going straight up and coming straight back down. Just like that jerkbait is going side to side to side. You're almost barely moving it back to the boat. Moving it back to the boat is not natural, and it's something that the fish see a lot and probably associate it with some type of negative outcome. When you are moving your jerkbait side to side, or you have that swank that is just going in these big, wide ranges of searching action that's kicking out that you won't ever get from a straight retrieve, same thing with the jig. It's shooting off the bottom and coming straight back down. That vertical straight fall is when you're going to get a lot of bites on your jig. You know that from just pitching a jig in there, letting it sink down. There's a fish on there. I didn't even have to do it. Didn't even have to move it. Didn't have to touch it. Nothing. Same thing with the stroking technique. You'll just slap that line on the surface of the water. Just give it a pop. Pop. And when you pop it up, there it is. Don't just set the hook. Reel in until you feel the weight of the fish, then pull. And that's going to be, again, the most natural way that you can move any type of artificial lure. They won't know you're there. You don't look like every other fisherman, and the retrieve becomes the most important thing in bass fishing. Now, again, there are times when a straight retrieve is good, but you can take this, what I've said here, and apply it to all baits. You can apply it to a spinner bait, where I'm talking about when that bait hits the water, you want to keep that rod tip up. You don't want to, unless you're throwing it on a flat, in the depth never changes from where the boat is sitting to the bank, straight flat. Yeah, you can throw it out there and keep your retrieve to your side or below, but like the hybrid hunter or the swank, when you throw it up there, you want to keep your rod tip up. and you want to be moving it. Same thing with a spinnerbait, same thing with a chatterbait. If you're throwing it up into a foot of water up near the bank, keep that rod tip up. You don't want it to go straight to the bottom. If the bait is up in the water column in a foot of the water, that's where it's going to want to be for the fish to get underneath and eat it. It's a foot. So there's no them looking down when they're in a foot of the water. So throw it up there, wind your rod tip up, and as you pull it off the bank, typically there's going to be a slope there. You're probably sitting out in 5 to 15 feet of water. Then you start lowering your rod tip and working it down. So if you are getting that part wrong, you are not going to catch any fish. You're going to be hanging the bottom, and you're not ever going to make that bait look natural to entice not only more fish, but bigger fish. Try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.